Mousekin's Woodland Sleepers. Story and pictures by Edna Miller. Mousekin heard a bird sing one dark December day. He peered from beneath his snowy blanket, half expecting spring, but snow swirled all around him, and through the sleeping woods the wind blew hard. It made the branches sway. In one large gust, Mousekin found himself sailing high above the treetops. When the wind blew downward, he landed in the snow, bed, blanket, and all, rolling over and over till he came to a stop at the foot of an evergreen. His nest had been a safe, warm home up in the apple tree, with everything a mouse would need to see a winter through. Now it lay upon the ground, its lining tossed and scattered. Mousekin looked all around him. He knew that he must hide at once from those who slept as lightly as he and hunted mice in winter. He dove beneath the snow and ran through an icy tunnel. Mousekin had made many such paths throughout the winter woods in case he would have to dash for cover. He followed this path till he came to the home of a friendly jumping mouse far beneath the ground. Down a narrow passageway and inside a tiny room, Mousekin found the jumper curled up in a little ball. He was fast asleep. He'd seen jumping mice in the autumn woods leaping about in search of food, but now the jumper was very quiet. He hardly seemed to breathe. Mousekin sniffed about the leaf-filled room. There was no food to be found, and the room was much too small for two. Mousekin hurried back to his snow tunnel up above. He would have to find a place to live in the frozen world outside. Not far from where he peered about, he saw a hollow tree. When the wind grew still and all seemed safe, Mousekin raced to the hiding place. Inside the tree were furry creatures with leathery wings wrapped close. They hung by their toes, head downward. Not one made a move. He had seen these mouse-like creatures many times before. They flew about on moonlit nights, trapping insects for their evening meal. Mousekin nudged one gently to see if it would move, but the bat was very, very still. It hardly seemed to breathe. There was no food to be found in this house either, and nothing with which to build a nest. Outside the hollow, Mousekin hid in the princess pine and nibbled wintergreen berries. Suddenly he spied a dip in the snow cover. It was a woodchuck's winter home. Mousekin found the entranceway underneath the snow. It was packed tightly with earth and leaves, and just enough room for a mouse to squeeze by. Mousekin had seen a woodchuck on summer afternoons, sitting in the middle of a large clover bed, as it ate and ate and ate. Now he found the woodchuck asleep far below the ground. Many rooms and many tunnels led to his sleeping chamber. The woodchuck's paws were tucked beneath him, his tail wrapped around his head. He was very still, though Mousekin came quite near, and he scarcely seemed to breathe. Just as Mousekin curled up to rest, he heard something stir in another room. In the darkness, Mousekin lifted his head and caught the scent of another creature he had met in the forest. The woodchuck had a winter guest, though he would never know until he woke in spring. Mousekin scrambled through the tunnel and raced to the opening above. The skunk had not been sound asleep as the woodchuck, bat, and the jumper had been. A mouse would have been a treat for a skunk when he awakened hungry in the night. Mousekin didn't look back till he reached the old stone wall. Raccoons high up in their hollow tree home watched Mousekin race below. They were too well fed and too sleepy to chase after the little mouse. Mousekin dove into a chipmunk home. just beneath the cornerstone of the old rock wall. He would have much to eat, for he had watched the chipmunk in the fall, making hundreds of trips from the big oak tree, storing winter food beneath the ground. The chipmunk slept near the ceiling on a great pile of acorns and leaves. He would not be hungry should he awaken in the night. Mousekin reached beneath the sleeping form and took an acorn quietly. As soon as Mousekin began to gnaw, the chipmunk stirred and awoke. He squeaked sleepily at first, then squealed angrily at Mousekin for sampling his winter store. Mousekin hurried from the burrow. He wasn't welcome here. Mousekin ran along the old stone wall till he came to a cave he had known. He had explored it many times in summer. There would be lots of room inside for a whitefoot mouse to hide. The entranceway was loosely sealed with sticks and leaves and stones. Mousekin searched until he found a mouse-sized opening. Inside, an enormous creature slept. His snores filled the cave with a frightening sound. Mousekin had seen the bear in early fall when he stripped great pawfuls of berries from branches near the ground. He had seen him reaching high into trees for apples, grapes, and plums. Mousekin had not known then that the bear was fattening for winter. His large, furry body was cozy and warm, not cold as the jumping mouse, and the woodchuck and the bats had been. Mousekin ran all around the slumbering bear to find a place to rest. When he came to the bear's head, buried between two giant paws, the bear moved, opened one eye, and growled. He had not been sound asleep. Outside the cave, an owl screeched. Fresh tracks crisscrossed the quiet snow. Mousekin trembled in the cold, for he knew how dangerous it was to be wide awake in winter. Mousekin raced silently across the ground. The box turtle and the family of snakes slept peacefully beneath in their winter homes. The toad, far below amongst the roots of a tree, was sleeping deeply too. Suddenly Mousekin stopped and listened. He heard something cheering and welcome. The bird called once again. The chickadee flew to a feeder. Mousekin followed him there. The feeder was filled with millet, cracked corn, and sunflower seeds. There were breadcrumbs and cake crumbs, bits of apple and raisins, suet and peanut butter. Mousekin ate and ate till he could eat no more. Night was over and another day had begun. Mousekin was sleepy now. On a nearby tree he saw a tiny house. It was wren-sized. It was mouse-sized. It was just right for a whitefoot mouse. Mousekin curled up on the birdhouse floor. The bedding was soft and warm. As he closed his eyes in the morning light, he heard happy calls outside. Some he knew, and some were strange, but all seemed glad and unafraid to be awake in winter. The end.